Hi, good afternoon. We are going into a new environment, doing a talk using digital tools. Okay, I'm going to show you I will take some time to just run you through the critical package that the Singapore government has announced. Now, this slides deck put together the unity budget, resilience budget, and what was just announced yesterday, so the solidarity budget. So you can see that the Singapore government has committed close to 60 billion of the budget to preserve jobs and support businesses during this COVID period. And you have seen some of our ministers is very emotional. They are rallying the people to look at how to help preserve jobs, make sure that a household don't get into financial difficulties, and make sure that the businesses can be preserved so that when we fight this COVID, the businesses eventually can recover and move on to do well, okay? Now, so what the government has done is provide these 3C. Make sure that there is enough cash to help businesses pay wages, right? Make sure that the household have enough cash to meet their living expenses. The second C they are looking at is cost reduction. They have already suspended all government levies. They have also announced a series of measures to help reduce costs, which I will take you through. And then the third C, which is important, is to make sure that your credits are there so that you need to draw down on these available facilities from the participating financial institutions to preserve your business and save jobs. Now, one of the critical things that that Singapore government is doing now and immediately is to put money to, in fact, all businesses before 17 April 2020, so that you have the cash to pay wages. So you have seen the minister announced yesterday that he has enhanced the job support scheme such that he will actually pay out 75% of the gross monthly wage capped at 4,600 for every Singapore citizens and PR, as long as they are employed in April 2020. Okay. After April 2020, assuming this is not extended, all right, the circuit breaker is not extended, then you will fall back to what was announced in the resilience budget, where a large sector of the economies will get 25% cash grants on the gross monthly wages. Those sectors that hit very badly by COVID, for example, the aviation and tourist sectors will continue to get the 75% wage support, okay? Food services will get 50% wage support. One thing that is critical in this is these wages paid to business owners and employers trading in their own personal capacity will not be eligible for this payout. Okay. Now, I show here how the payout is going to be calculated. The one that you're going to get before 17 April, which is before next week, you'll notice that they have put in a 75% wage subsidy on your October 2019 wage bill, okay? Now, what you need to know is come to the second payout, when they factor in the April 2019, you will notice it is plus 75% wage, less, all right, less 25% of what they have paid out here, okay? And in all the other sectors, less 50% of what they have paid out here. So this will come back to 25% for goods services. This will come back to the support level of 50%. What does all this means to our business entities. Okay, look at this one. Now, assuming you have and this is for a local wage with a gross monthly salary of $3,000 working in the retail sectors. So they and assuming in this sector the wage support is 25%. Okay. Now, if you are an employer A and you continue to employ this worker in April 2020 and pay regular wages, you'll be entitled to the 3 payouts. Okay. Now, look at scenario 2. If you put this worker under no pay leave the whole of April, okay, then when you get the payout in the payout 2, you will get 0. Okay, this is one way to make sure that all businesses continue to pay your workers the salary in April. Employee C, if you retrench the workers in April 2020, then what you were seeing is you wouldn't get the payout, right, under payout 2 and payout 3. In scenario 4, if you have done a wage reduction in February 2020 and retrench the worker in April 2020, come to payout 2 time, you owe the Singapore government $750, you got to pay back, and you won't enjoy any payout, right? And payout 3 is 0. Okay, so this is very clear to all businesses. Do what you can to pay the salaries in the month of April, save all the jobs. Now, this time round, the government has also enhanced the payout to the household, right, by another $300. Okay, and you will see here, depending on your accessible income, okay, if you are in the lower category of accessible income, with that $300, now the total payout will be $1,200 for each household. Okay, and the payout will be in April and in June. Okay, this is not household though, for all Singaporeans. So if you have already got a bank account with the Singapore government, all right, all the money will be credited to your bank account by 14 April. And if you don't have that, then they will send a check to you, okay, starting 30th April 2020. So this is the cash payout to help every Singaporean fight and come out stronger on this COVID crisis. The self-employed person has also been enhanced. You'll notice now 2 changes were made yesterday. One is you don't have to apply now, is auto inclusion of all the self-employed persons who earn a small income from employment work. Okay, and the annual value of the property threshold has also been raised from 13,000 to 21,000. It means that for those self-employed that are staying in certain private properties or condos, okay, they will be entitled to this relief, income relief scheme. And also you will notice that the payout now is also accelerated. You will get 3,000 in May, July, October. Okay. Now the cash support for companies, and this has been announced. Okay, this has been announced. But yesterday, the finance minister has enhanced the risk sharing to 90%. Okay, and this is actually to encourage the participating financial institutions to hand out these facilities to as many SME as possible. Okay, and this also addresses this issue about the feedback from the business community that the bank are still very strict in their evaluation, and hopefully with this enhancement of the risk sharing ratio, you will allow the banks to approve these facilities on a much faster basis. Okay, MAS and also together with the Association Bank of Singapore has also announced a scheme where the participating financial institutions can tap on this Singapore dollars loan, which will reduce the funding cost provided that the participating financial institutions give back the savings in the funding cost, okay, to the borrowers. So you're likely to see that the interest rate that you're paying under these two schemes come down, okay? So please speak to your participating financial institutions and look at how to get their support to help you tap on these risk sharing facilities provided by the Singapore government. There are a host of measures to look at how to reduce the cost. So in the month of April, there's a waiver of the foreign workers levy, and they will also give you the rebate back, okay, for the levies that you have paid this year for each work permit or S-Pass holder. So you will notice actually there's a lot of cash savings coming from this back to you to help you tide over this difficult period. Property tax rebates, they have already passed, I think they are going to pass the law to make sure that the landlord now are under law to return you, to reimburse you the property tax rebates, okay? If you are on the government properties, you will now see that there is, 1 month waiver for all other non-residential tenants announced yesterday, okay? And if you do need more help, please speak to the government authority so that they can assess the situations on a case-by-case basis. So you can see that this government is going all out to provide these 3 C's, right? Cash, cost reduction, and the credit facilities. And they hope that the business will do its part, okay, to preserve and save jobs, and then don't do anything in a haste, right, to dismantle your critical business functions and lay off workers in such difficult time. We need to understand that this is a global public health issue. It's not just Singapore. Many other governments in the world are doing similar relief measures. And everybody is looking into preserving the business, preserving jobs. And all of us has to do our part to preserve our business, to preserve our jobs, okay? And stay safe.
Hi, everyone. Good to see all of you, participating in this webinar. Indeed, as what Woon has highlighted, we are going into a very difficult and challenging period. This is like no other crisis that we have been before in our short, history of since independence. And globally, the situation is certainly not improving. So my presentation essentially can be split into 3 parts. One, I will focus about the current situations, not just on the pandemic, but also in terms of economic conditions, especially our forecast with regards to the global economy and also for the ASEAN region. Then I'll zoom in on the Singapore economy. And from there, you will see essentially what our economy is currently going through. And then finally, I will share with you, light at the end of the tunnel, light beyond the gloom, essentially because I think, right now we are all dominated, basically overwhelmed with all the bad news, very, very gloomy outlook, a lot of worry and concerns. But I think it it may help to look beyond the current gloom that we are going through. So I have some information with regards to the 3 packages, but I think Woon has already touched quite a fair bit on that. So I'll skip through those slides quite quickly, but just bear with me for the next 20-25 minutes. Okay. Well, indeed, like I said, we are going through a very difficult period. As of now, the COVID-19 pandemic has already infected more than 1 million people. In fact, just this morning, I look at the data again, it is about 1.25 million people have been infected with the COVID-19 virus. Death has already exceeded 50,000, and I think is heading into the 60,000 mark. And in terms of fatality rate, this is unlike where it first started. When it first started, I think somewhere around February, we were looking at just about, fatality rate of roughly about 2%. But right now, fatality has certainly increased. Now is at about 5.4%. And the reason is very simple, because in many Western developed economies, they have an aging populations. Okay, they have a large share of, elderly. And also, I think in certain parts of Europe, they haven't been investing into their healthcare system for many years. Because do bear in mind that Europe went through a very difficult economic crisis in 2012. That is the Eurozone debt crisis. And that, I think, many countries literally were on the brink of bankruptcy. So they do not have enough resources to invest in healthcare system since then. So, a lack of good healthcare system and also a relatively high elderly populations, that has contributed to this high fatality rate, in the Western developed economies. So right now, Europe and US are the new epicenters. They are the worst hit. And in US, for example, we are essentially looking at, infections of about more than 300,000 people has been infected. And if you look at this chart here, this shows the daily new cases of COVID-19 in the various regions. The pink bar shows the Eurozone region, and the yellowish bar shows what's happening in US. So you can see that in Europe, there are gradually some emerging signs of stabilizations. The worry right now is no longer Italy, is rather instead is Spain. All right, Spain's number has already exceeded that of Italy. But my biggest worry is actually on the yellow bar, the US. US, right now in terms of number of infection is already the highest, in the world, and it is about 3.5 times higher than the roughly about 80,000 cases in China. So I think when an economy or a country or an organization is going through a crisis, a very critical factor which is very crucial in whether the country can quickly recover from that crisis is leadership, right? And I'm quite worried, even though in the US we are talking about the most powerful economy nations in the world. GDP is the biggest economy, but unfortunately, I think what US lack now is good leadership. Across the world, various form of very restrictive measures has already been put in place. You can see from chart here, those countries that are in red are essentially on lockdown, all right? Or basically they have already imposed very strict stay-at-home, non-working kind of measures. Those countries in orange are essentially they have introduced sub-regional quarantine or lockdown. That means certain provinces, certain states are in lockdown, but not all across the whole country. And those yellow are essentially just certain form of restrictions. So I think at some point in time, you'll start to see this chart gradually turning more and more red, because as the number of cases, number of infections continue to increase. So given what we have seen on the the pandemic, how it spreads globally, we have already pared down our forecast on some of the key markets. For example, in China, we are looking at 4.5%. In Eurozone, we are looking at recession of 1.5%. In the US, at 1%. Now, I want to clarify this, that this number are still tentative number. I do foresee more downside risk to this forecast. From what I understand from my other teammates, they are reviewing their forecast, particularly on China and the US. Closer to home in ASEAN, this chart here gives you a very brief overview on how the various countries would likely be impacted by the COVID-19 based on, if you look at the x-axis, the tourism revenue as a percentage of GDP, and on the y-axis, export as a percentage of GDP. And you can see that among the countries, Thailand, Vietnam will be more deeply impacted from the tourism perspective, and Singapore and Vietnam will be more badly hit, particularly from the exports channel. Now, even though this chart shows you more from the perspective from external demand, we have to understand that as more countries impose domestic, nature type of restrictive measures, For example, in Singapore, the circuit breaker. In Malaysia, you have the movement control order. So as more countries introduce this kind of restrictive measure, it will hit their domestic consumption as well as their domestic investment. So that essentially means there could be more downside risk on their GDP growth. This is the forecast that we have for ASEAN country. Just 2 months ago, earlier in the year, some of the bubbles are actually blue. Blue meaning that there's acceleration in growth, or at least growth rate will remain stable. But now it's all red. Every country is showing significantly slower growth, signified by the reflected by the red color, and also the size of the bubble reflects the size of the economy. And if you look at and where the positioning shows you the GDP growth as well as inflation, this is our forecast. So countries like Thailand, Singapore, and Malaysia will go into a recession this year. All right, I'll touch on more on Singapore later. Even countries like Vietnam, it actually has its growth forecast shift by roughly about half. Last year it registered growth of about 7%. This year is only registering growth of roughly about 4%. So Indonesia as well, we have growth, on average for the past few years, hovering at about 5%. Right now, we are looking at growth of just 2.5%. So that is a significant markdown in terms of their growth forecast and growth outlook. This is from the ASEAN region wide. Beginning of the year, we were looking at growth on average for ASEAN at 4.5%. Today, we are looking at growth of just 0.4% for 2020. So that essentially shows you how the ASEAN region is also badly hit by the COVID-19 outbreak. Now let me zoom in on Singapore. Well, last year was already a bad year for Singapore economy. We registered just growth of 0.7%. This is the weakest full year growth since the global financial crisis. Now, just when we thought that we could potentially see some sort of improvement this year, then COVID-19 has thrown the spanner in the works. Manufacturing-wise, we saw a very sharp drop in China's PMI. Look at the red line in the month of February. But this subsequently was followed by a sharp rebound up to 52. Anything above 50 means expansion, all right, in March. So China's PMI has bounced back to expansion level in March, and that's very quick. I will share with you more about that towards the end of my presentation. But the other key, export markets like the US and Eurozones, their PMIs has been falling. Singapore PMIs has registered just 45.4 in March. And this is the lowest since the global financial crisis. Tourism sector is the one that has, bear the full blown of the COVID-19 outbreak. Tourists, the tour agencies, the aviation industry, SIA, all these related companies are all badly affected. Tourism, destinations, they are all badly affected. So you can see here, this chart shows you the tourist arrivals. The black line shows you the overall tourist arrival. It was down by about 50% in February, and led mainly by a 98% drop from Chinese tourists. Note that China accounts for about 20% of total tourist arrivals. This is followed by about 70+% drop from South Koreans, as well as about 50% drop from the Indonesian. So altogether, these three key markets, these three markets are three of the biggest market for Singapore. They account for roughly about 40% of our total tourist arrivals. So you can imagine from this data that the tourism sector certainly has been badly hit. Retail sector is also just as equally badly affected. The chart on the left-hand side shows you, the overall figure. Retail sales, the black line, plunged 13% in 1 month during February. This is the sharpest single month drop since the global financial crisis. And if you look at the chart on the right-hand side, you can see that those segments within retail sales industry, like F&B, footwear and clothing, watches and jewelries, the luxury products, these are the segments that are worst hit. Now, in contrast, supermarkets, sales actually has picked up. Well, I mean, I guess suppose that is understandable. So what are we looking at for Singapore? We expect full year growth to contract by 2.8% for the full year. I'll share with you what do we mean by 2.8% later on in the next slides. But a technical recession in the first half of the year is already a given. You can also expect 4 consecutive quarters of negative year-on-year growth. In other words, the headline number on a year-on-year basis, you will continue to see negative numbers right throughout the whole year. And if the COVID-19 pandemic situations can stabilize towards the second half of the year, then we could potentially see the headline number bouncing back to a mild positive in the first quarter of next year. There will be knock-on impact on employment. Our estimates is that potentially we could see 24,500 retrenchment this year. I'll share more on this as well. Now, minus 2.8, how does that compare to past recessions? This will be the worst recession for Singapore in our history since independence. This is deeper than the Asia financial crisis, where the economy contracted by 2.2%. In fact, the risk is still on the downside. In terms of the labor market, typically on average, every year you will see roughly on average about 14,500 retrenchments. But every time the economy goes into a recession, you will see this number surpassing 20,000. So our number is 24,500. Our forecast is 24,500. This is slightly better compared to the Asia financial crisis and dot-com bust. Now you may be thinking, why is it that GDP growth is the sharpest ever, but yet retrenchment number is still fairly moderate and not as high as the Asia financial crisis or dot-com bust? The reason is simple, because this time around the government's policy response is very, very robust. Many of the policy measures have never been introduced before in past crises. And I think those policy measures will go a long way in terms of preventing retrenchment, particularly the job support scheme. I think this is a very important policy measures that will help prevent mass retrenchment. Inflation-wise, because of the weak growth, we are expecting inflation this year to average minus 0.1%. And with inflation not, basically dipping into disinflation territory, the MAS has went forward to ease monetary policy aggressively. Just on the 30th of March, the MAS introduced a 2-in-1 monetary easing. Essentially, it has switched to a zero appreciation, and at the same time, it has recentered the policy band downward by about 0.5% based on our estimates. Now, this will go a long way in terms of providing not just liquidity into our banking system, but also, more importantly, to ensure relatively competitive Sing dollar against our major trading partners' currency. Now, the government has introduced, as what Woon has highlighted, introduced 3 stimulus package: the Unity, Resilience, and Solidarity packages. And the numbers are in my slides. You can have a look. All in, 60 billion has been poured into buffering the impact of COVID-19. That accounts for about 12% of GDP. And this means that Singapore has registered a record deficit of 44.3 billion, which accounts for about 8.9% of GDP. Now, I show you the chart here on the left-hand side, all right? Look at the big contrast between, in terms of fiscal policy response this time around, compared to the past crisis. We have never seen, in my 20 over years as an economist, I've never seen this kind of number before. So this essentially reflects the strong commitments that policymakers have committed in terms of buffering the economy and helping Singapore overcome this COVID-19 crisis. Also, the government has drawn down 21 billion from the reserve. This, again, is unprecedented. I just also want to touch on, before I go to the previous slides. In the past SARS crisis, the government only introduced a relief package that is worth 230 million, all right? So it pales in comparison to what we are currently seeing from what has been rolled out thus far. Okay, so I will not go through too much on the resilience package. This is mainly on the resilience package, which Woon has already touched on. You can go down, you look at my slides. There is a link down there. You can go to the MOF website if you need more details. But like I mentioned, most important policy measures thus far is the enhanced jobs support scheme, which help to prevent job losses. For companies, the key focus is surely cash flow, cost, and credit. And then, of course, some of these schemes has been enhanced in the most recent solidarity package. Also, there are specific target measures for those industry that are more badly impacted. Now, this is a solidarity package, just a rough summaries. Now, let me focus more on light beyond the gloom. What we are currently seeing in China. China is the first epicenter, and that's where basically this COVID-19 started. The government has introduced very drastic draconian measures, despite a lot of criticisms from the Western countries. But it's now, on hindsight, it seems to suggest that those drastic measures are actually effective. In fact, what saddens me right now is to see many Western media, instead of trying to urge the government to do more, they are actually criticizing the Chinese government for hiding the data, so on and so forth. But the point is this: whether the figure is understated or not, that's not the point. The point is that China is showing some stabilization, is showing some success in containing COVID-19. And there is certainly some lessons to be learned. So the chart here shows you the production resumption rate across China. The graph basically was last updated on 28th of February. Back then, we were looking at roughly about 75% of resumption. Now, we didn't have the time to update those figures into graph form, but basically based on what my colleagues have been sharing with me, they are seeing a resumption rate of almost 99% for major industrial companies across China as of end of March. As for smaller company, resumption rate is 72%. Another way to look at the recovery in China is to focus on the energy productions. Essentially, in all industries, in all economy, energy consumption is a very good gauge in terms of the growth. And you can look at the red line here. Energy consumption is recovering back to previous year's level. Also, iron ore. If you talk about industrials productions, iron metals is a very important raw materials. So the chart on the left-hand side shows you the iron ore shipments from Australia and Brazil. These are major supplier for China. It has returned back to fourth quarter last year, end of last year's level. And in terms of the coke plant operating rate, this is where the iron smelting companies or production plants the production rate is also recovering. Home sales, even consumers, they are not only just going out to shop for groceries, they are buying homes. If you look at the chart on the left-hand side, home sales across 30 major cities in China is also gradually picking up after hitting the bottom sometime, after the Chinese New Year. The chart on the right-hand side shows you that essentially because 96% of large supermarket and 90% of all shopping malls have reopened by March 22nd. Now, this has also led to an increase in terms of congestion. Trade flow-wise, the chart here shows you the China's in and out, entering vessels movement in and out of China across different type of carriers. They are all unanimously showing some form of improvement as well. So I've come to the end of my presentations. What I want to say is this. I think we are going through a very, very difficult period. Many of us may not be used to this, particularly given the implementations of these circuit breaker measures. Now, the days ahead will still be plagued with a lot of risk and uncertainty. But I believe that if we are able to help one another, I think we can go through this crisis together. So stay safe and take care, everyone.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alan. I'm a business advisor from SME Center at SCCCI. What I'm going to share with you today will be kind of a repeat of what you already heard from the first two speakers, Mr. Woon Teck and Mr. Irvin Sia. So if I come to those key points, I will probably browse through very quickly. Right. Today, my presentation will be on mainly these three key points: managing cash flow, deepen capabilities, retain and develop talent. Right. The Resilient and Solidarity Budget will support businesses by addressing immediate concerns, providing companies additional support to deepen capabilities and help companies keep and train workers for the recovery. So first, let's take a look at how business can manage the immediate cash flow issues. This is also kind of a repeat of what you have already heard from Mr. Woon Teck. So we have a working capital loan and trade loan. To address the immediate cash flow concerns, enterprises in all sectors will have access to higher loan quantums and also delayed principal repayments for loans up to a year for the working capital loan and temporarily bridging loans. And the Enhanced Temporarily Bridging Loan Program allows eligible businesses to borrow from the PFIs, participating financial institutions, with interest rate capped at 5%, and of course, 1 year deferral of the principal repayment. Right. Again, you have also heard from Mr. Woon Teck that the government has also announced the risk share has been raised to now 90% to incentivize the banks to lend to the viable enterprises. Automatic deferral of a company's income tax payment due in April to June, and also a freeze, there is no hikes of all government fees and charges for 1 year. These two, 5 and 6, that is enhanced property tax rebates and rental waivers. Mr. Woon Teck has covered that. I will just leave it on the screen here for 2 seconds for you just to recap. All right. Now we look at how this budget has helped companies deepen their capabilities and increase productivity. Now, to ensure business continuity and for enterprises to continue to build capabilities, we have here up to 80% support for remote working arrangements and digital solutions to reduce disruptions to businesses. Some examples here are online collaboration tools, virtual meeting and telephony tools, queue management systems, temperature screening solutions. Examples of advanced security and facilities management systems are cluster guarding, digital concierges, sensors and analytics for energy management, and predictive maintenance, smart toilet systems. Lastly, for the integrated systems, examples are e-procurement, e-financing, e-payment, and inventory management. For those who are new to this e-invoicing registration grant, let me just give you a brief. This e-invoicing will help businesses improve efficiency, reduce costs, enjoy faster payment cycles, and build strong foundation for digitalizations. It allows businesses to send e-invoices from their accounting and ERP systems directly to their buyers. Register on nationwide e-invoicing network on or before 31st of December 2020, you will receive a one-off $200 grant. You may also register through more than the 50 PEPL-ready accounting and ERP solutions. For those who are familiar with EDG, Enterprise Development Grant, you can receive now up to 80% support for all projects. And for those badly hit sectors such as like F&B, retail, on a case-by-case basis, you will receive up to 90% support. This is for projects where enterprises are urgently in need to remodel their business models so as to find new business opportunities and retain their workers. Just to give you an example, a catering business undertakes a business model refresh by switching to producing pre-packed meals for those on stay-at-home notices. For PSG, Productivity Solutions Grant, you will now also enjoy up to 80% support for over 80 pre-scoped solutions and eligible equipment for specific sectors. Now, for training, employers should use this slowdown to reskill their workforce and prepare for a quick recovery. We encourage employers to engage with SkillsFuture Singapore on the relevant skills needed for your sector. Support for SMT payroll rates capped at $10 per trainee hour or 90% is available. and certain sectors can receive up to 90% support for training. Now, please note that the enhanced absentee payroll rate, 90% support is extended to land transport and arts and culture sectors on 1st of April this year. Land transport refers to point-to-point transport and private hire buses. It will subsequently be extended to all sectors for all courses eligible for absentee payroll funding on 1st of May this year. Now, how can the budget help companies keep your talents? Right. So this slide, actually, I do not want to go through anymore because the JSS has been pretty emphasized already by the first two speakers. So I'll just again leave it on the screen for you just to mull over it for 2 seconds. For the wage credit scheme, the first tranche of the wage credit has actually been paid out last month, before 31st of March 2020. The second tranche of the supplementary credits will be paid by June this year. Training of new hires will be co-funded. It will be supported up to 8,000 traineeships in 2020 across both large and small enterprises. It includes science and technology traineeships in R&D labs, deep tech startups, accelerators, and incubators. Foreign worker levy, again, Mr. Woon has already covered. So again, I'll just let you have a quick look before I move on to the next slide. Now, these are the 5 sectors that have been badly impacted by COVID-19, and which explains why these sectors are receiving more support from government. Just to give you an example, if an SME, which is in the F&B sector, has a chain of 5 outlets, 50 employees, and 6 million annual revenue, and of course, it is being impacted by COVID-19. So, of course, the SME has access to all these working capital loans from the banks. Then for the corporate tax rebates of up to 15,000. And of course, we mentioned earlier on the TBL, Temporarily Bridging Loan Program, which is available to them. For JSS, we're looking at this figure of 315,000 if they retain the Singapore's or the PR employees on the payroll. And there's a skills future enterprise credit of up to 10,000 for the company to tap. Over to this PSG Productivity Solutions grant, which is a $30,000 cap for each entity. And last but not least will be the enterprise development grant, again, for up to 80%. So take, for example, currently now we are on this circuit breaker measure. So SME can tap on this, this SME rather, can tap on this food delivery booster package to support F&B businesses. So including hawkers to reach out to customers staying at home in light of the stricter safe distancing measures that's put in place. One more example for the logistic company, which has 50 employees and 9 million turnover. Similarly, for the loans that's available, and this is the rental rebate of up to 2,500. This is from JSS. This is earlier mentioned SkillsFuture Enterprise credit of up to 10,000, and PSG also remaining at 30,000. And last but not least will be the EDG. Sorry, this is the Enterprise Leadership for Transformation, helping the business leaders to learn new skills to transform their business. Now, forging ahead, that's why we encourage our businesses to press on. And there are some thoughts and ideas that for business continuity that we want to share with everyone. This is what we call the 3 T's concept for business transformation. The 3 T's are thinking, technology, and talent. We hope to work with SMEs, the Tauke's, the business owners, in terms of remodeling their current business model, or maybe thinking about how they should strategize to better prepare themselves for the recovery, a quick recovery. So that's under the first T. The second T will be leveraging on technology, which is widely promoted by government agencies. So we advocate, please make use of the available solutions that it can help you to improve your process workflows. And last but not least, of course, you as a management, you can't do everything on your own. We encourage you also to develop a good team of talent to help you achieve your goals. The next 2 slides, I'm going to walk you through very quickly from the available solutions introduced by IMDA and SG Teck. All these, ladies and gentlemen, are free resources for your business continuity. So if you have not adopted any of these solutions, such as remote working, visitor management, bill and pay online, sell online, others, there are free resources at IMDA's website. Go check it out, please. It's under the 4 industries and look for digital solutions directory. I'm going to show you the next slide, which are the solutions that you can tap on for these 5 categories. I'll just flash it here for 5 seconds, just let you have a quick look. These are the 5 I mentioned earlier on. These are the functions individually, and these are the available free resources that is at the website. All right, moving on. I'm coming to my last slide already. Let me quickly conclude. Ladies and gentlemen, enterprises should look at how support measures can alleviate the different cost components of their operating expenditure. The journey that businesses are going through, we know is not easy. However, the way forward for companies is to seize the opportunities even when the going is tough. Companies should make full use of the available support to stay afloat. We, SME Centers and Enterprise Singapore, will work closely with you to ride through this uncertainty together.
We as a firm has launched this Business Resilience Advisory Program to help our clients and businesses, okay? Now, what is this Business Resilience Program? The key is how do we help our businessmen maintain a positive mindset during this difficult time, okay? In fact, when I was talking to many of the business owners, okay, many of them, if you look at this chart, felt that this time now they can't do anything, or they are not going to make it, okay, or they are here, you know, I want to do it, but I don't know what to do. They are quite lost, okay. So the point that we are trying to do today is to get our business owner to, first of all, maintain a positive mindset, to know that situation, while it is quite bleak in this country, is not out of the control. You look at the massive 3 Cs that the government has put in immediately, such short time, to help you preserve your jobs and the business. You need to know the whole of government is doing what they can to protect as many businesses as possible. But if you now become very negative, depressed, and give up, then you know it is really a waste, because you have spent so many years building your business. Okay, so what we like all our business people to do is to take control of what you can control, okay, and do not worry too much about what you cannot control. No questions like whether it's going to be a L recovery or a V recovery or U recovery. What is going to happen to Boris Johnson? What is going to happen to US? Hey, look, these are events that we cannot control. We better look at what we internally can control, all right? And I think we have to look at how to move our people here. I can do it, I will do it, yes, and I did it, okay? Now, in all our 35 years of working with our local enterprises, this is the period where we see that the business owners need a sounding board, and we are happy to be part of this process to provide this sounding board to any business who need help, right? I talk about the need to stay positive, right, and stay calm. I think staying calm is very important because you can think better and you know what are your options. If you don't stay calm and you panic and you start to press all the wrong buttons, say all the wrong things, you shake confidence. You not only shake confidence with your staff, you shake confidence with your customers, with your suppliers. That situation will be even worse, right? Now, how do you stay calm and stay positive? I think the things that all of us can do, okay? The first thing we have been going out to our clients is be honest and do a assessment of where you stand, where your business stands. And a lot of you are going to tell me, hey, look, it's not going to be pretty. In fact, when I do this assessment, you know, the more fear I have. But actually, not true. When you do this assessment and you take actions to look at how to reduce your cash flow break-even, reduce your waste, reduce your cash burn rate, and you talk to your staff openly, this is the situation. I'm looking at how to preserve jobs. I'm looking at how to stay afloat. You will notice that there are staff who come and tell you, boss, this is what I can do. This is what I will do, right? And there are many, many ideas. We had a very small micro SME who do this Western food in one of these HDB outlets in Teluk Blangah. And I was talking to the owner and he told me, actually, when I open up and tell the staff what we are doing, they come up with very good suggestions, including how do we go out and deliver food to home. So it is not a scenario where you hide your problems. I think it is a scenario where you work together with your staff to examine how to bring down your cost structure and to look at how to fight this COVID together, okay? And stay compact, stay united, okay? To wait for the recovery to come. We all must know, all of us need to eat, all of us need to shop, all right? All of us need to walk around, okay? This 1 month confinement or in isolation doesn't mean that the whole world will stop forever, all right? So there must be some positiveness in this, okay? And you can take this 1 month to actually ready your people to do up all the plans on how to cushion this impact and focus on recovery. What we are trying to share with you is use this time to look at this 5R framework to survive COVID. Only when you are willing to fight and survive this COVID, then you have a chance to come out stronger. But if today you say, hey, look, I give up, all right, then nobody can help you. No amount of additional grants from the government will help you if you already mentally prepared to surrender, okay? Now, there are 5 R's that we think it is critical in a critical period like this. Be honest together with your people. Look at how to reduce waste and cut efficiency. Today is not about spending. Today is about conserving cash and contain the cash outflow, okay? And also look at how to construct, right, your business model to do simple things that generate cash, okay? If you bother to sit down together with your people, you will find that there are many ideas. Many of the restaurants we know today are already converting to the Tapao business and actively going out to push food, all right, on a Tapao basis, okay? Now, if you recognize that you have to deploy, you have all this excess manpower, and if you redeploy these resources, you can approach the agencies, you can approach the TACs. There are many assistance available to help companies who have excess manpower to look at how to redeploy manpower. What I think you need to take note of is MOM and the Tripartite Advisory has issued very useful advisory guideline on how you should be managing excess manpower. And if you have to do retrenchment, do it responsibly. And there are many guidelines in the MOM websites in this area that you can tap on to go through together with your HR to formulate a plan how to redeploy your resources, okay? Now, this is the best time to actually retrain and retain your talents. This storm is not going to be winter forever. After winter, spring will come. And when spring comes, Where are your core team? Where are your critical business processes? Where are your core talents? This has actually helped us, this COVID crisis has actually helped us recognize the need to digitalize your processes, the need to go into the digital economy a lot faster than what most of our local enterprises think. You have no time. And I think this is where talk to your TACs, talk to the economic agencies. How do you digitalize your business? Rethink how you engage the business, rethink how you use technologies like what we are doing today, to have online interaction. China News Asia has a program, I think it's Insights, and they talk about China digital companies. Why the Tencent, why the Alibaba emerged. And these companies emerged during the SARS time. Today, they continue to play a critical role in helping China and the Chinese government, overcome this COVID crisis, and they will recover very, very fast, right? So you can see that even if you are late in this game, it is not gone, right? You have to put the effort to go into the digital economy and look at how to transform the business to engage, your customers, your suppliers, your staff. Now, the last tool I think is very, very pivotal in building up the psychological defense to survive this COVID. In crisis like this is the time to actually rally your people to stay positive, agile, and adaptable. In fact, by bringing your people together to brainstorm how we can overcome and fight this together, you will come out recognizing that you are not alone as owners, Everywhere you see the beauty of mankind, you see the compassion, the sympathy, the beauty that every living human being has. And this is the time where you work with your people to align your value systems with your visions, and build a strong core team, who has walked this test of fire together with you to create a better future for all. So in my parting words to all of you, talk out your problem. Don't coop up, If you wake up in the morning, go and do your walk around your neighborhood, make sure you do your social distancing, stay fit, Don't immediately read newspaper and see who died, how many people die. The fatality statistics, does it help any one of us? It doesn't. Think creatively, what can I do, to stay engaged with my customers? What can I do to stay engaged with my staff today, Day 2 in this isolation, Show your care to your customers, to your staff, Draw out your plans, how to restart your business after these 30 days. The more you start to rally your people to do this, the more you are in control. And the more you are in control, the more you have the ability to stay alive and fight this COVID together with your people. Finally, to all our friends out there listening, please don't give up. Fight on. The better tomorrow will come, and it will have to come, These are the dark moments where we will rally the people, stay together, do whatever we can, to preserve our business and jobs, and wait for the recovery to come. Thank you very much. I would like at this point in time to invite Ted to say a few words. He has been working very hard, and he was talking to me. He's manning the hotline and talking to the business community, right? To dish out more help. Ted, I'm going to hand over to you to say something to our participants here.
Okay, thanks, Woon Teck. I hope all of you can hear me. It's been a very challenging time, as mentioned earlier by the speakers. But first, thanks Jackson for inviting me to join the Q&A, and also Woon Teck for your very good presentation and also encouragement at the end. Irvin for your very good prognosis of the current scenario and what's going on in Singapore and the world. And last but not least, also thank Alan for presenting on behalf of Enterprise Singapore on the measures that are out there to help the companies. So maybe first, Woon Teck, thanks for your advice to companies to stay calm, stay positive. In fact, I like your 5R, to redeploy the resources, reduce waste, retaining the talents, and realign the vision at the same time, rejuvenate the people, the staff. So on the budget side, you have heard Alan gave the presentation earlier. I just want to say that the three budgets, the Unity, the Resilience, and Solidarity budget, was aimed at saving jobs and helping enterprises to overcome these unprecedented challenges in response to the COVID-19. So the three things that we do at Enterprise Singapore was to manage the cash flow. As you heard earlier, there are various financing schemes that are in place, including the temporary bridging loans, the working capital, and also, in fact, our intervention to help in the property tax rebates. I think there are some questions in Q&A, saw in the queue, the top of property tax rebates. So, in fact, there is also a legislation that was introduced on 2nd of April to make landlords pass on 100% of tax rebates to tenants. So when the legislation is passed, landlords who fail to pass fully without good reasons will be guilty of offense. So that applies to both government as well as private sector landlords. So that to address one of the questions that are in the queue. The second thing that we do is to deepen capabilities, including the SME Go Digital, various enhancements to the enterprise development grants, which up to, in fact, mostly 80% from 70%, and then now up to 90% on a case-by-case basis for some of the worst hit sectors by the COVID. And lastly, I think very important, which also Woon Teck mentioned earlier, was to retain and develop talent. So this is the best time to actually retrain and enhance the capabilities of your talents. And with the job support scheme, the wage credit scheme, and the various training providers that are coming forward, I think this is the best time to rethink, realign, at the same time looking at how can you prepare for the recovery. So I'll say maybe the 3 C's of the cash flow, management was covered earlier, cash flow. Second C on capabilities, building capabilities. And thirdly, to ensure business continuity by retaining and developing talents. And I think we all stay united, we all emerge stronger. And you know, in the Chinese, crisis is Wei Ji, Wei as in crisis, and secondly, Ji as in Ji Hui, opportunities. So in a crisis, there's always the brighter side of looking at things. So we all stay home, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay positive. I'm sure we'll overcome this crisis together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. Ted, there are many questions coming in to talk about this policy that if you are shareholder and director, you are not entitled under the job support scheme payout. And I think the hardest hit is those sole proprietors, right? Husband and wife team, they they are shareholder, director, they are also staff, and they have 2 or 3 people. ESG or the relevant government agencies look into this and look at how can we help this micro SME who are caught because of this rule, right? They are both shareholders, directors. Can something be done to help them?
Okay, we'll take that question. In fact, maybe the MOM session tomorrow can address that. But I just want to maybe make a comment that the intent of job support scheme was to retain workers. So enterprise owners, shareholders, equity owners will have the interest to ensure that the company survives. And there are various schemes that help owners. For example, I mentioned earlier about managing cash flows. So that's targeted at the owners and the business proprietors. For example, the financing schemes, the working capital loans, the temporary bridging loans, those are really targeted to help the owners. So the job support scheme actually is looking at retaining jobs for the companies. Yeah, I hope that answers partial of the question, but you can also ask MOM tomorrow whether it can be extended to the owners and the shareholders.
Yeah, maybe Ted, you can help us to also feedback to MTI or MOM to relook at this, and hopefully for the smaller micro SME, they should be treated like the self-employed, right? And look at how to help them more.
Okay,
yeah.
we'll take the feedback, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Now, Irvin, there are people who are asking me, how do you see the recovery? How long? And you talk about China recovery. What is your take? And if the China does recover, how is it going to help all of us in Singapore?
Okay, well, you know, I remember about 2 weeks ago when I spoke to these, foreign investment bank economists. I said, I'm very worried about US, but his reply was very stark, and he said, I think you should worry about Asia first rather than worry about US. We are big and we are able to take care of ourselves. The US government is throwing out trillions, and what are the Asian government doing? But, what we have seen 2 weeks later, the level of infections in US is getting a little bit out of hand. From the news flow, is really look very worrying. But in contrast, China is definitely showing very clear signs of stabilization, which I've shown just now in my slides. So how can we expect the recovery in China to help us? Now, a lot of people will immediately say that China is dependent on exports. That's not really the case. Because if you consider net exports, that means exports minus imports, that is only roughly about 10% of China's GDP. China is actually a lot more dependent on investments and consumption today compared to 10 years ago. Investment, for example, as a percent of GDP is roughly about 50% of GDP. And then the rest the big chunk comes from consumption, domestic consumption. So what is really hampering the swift recovery in China today? What is preventing them from having a very swift recovery is the current restrictive measures that are still in place in certain many parts of the country. There are still certain level of restriction. Okay, we are seeing workers going back to work, yes, but in terms of the traffic flows, there are still limitations. Okay, so we are gradually seeing this, built up in terms of congestion, but it is still not fully at the pre-crisis level yet. So if China is able to reach its domestic economy, its domestic, consumption and investment activity can quickly return back to normalcy, then naturally it means that there will be more need for imports, all right? And then also this could potentially bring about, an improvement in our export sector, and likewise for the export sectors in the region as well. I think that is the first sort of the first sign of help that we can see from China's recovery. Whether we will see improvement coming from tourist arrivals or not, I think that really depends on whether countries are willing to open up their borders, to accept, Chinese tourists. Now, we may be ready I mean, China may be ready to open up, but to let their Chinese citizens go abroad for holiday. But the point is that they are also very worried about situations in ASEAN region and also perhaps even in Singapore. So I think the countries around the region must show clear signs of the ability to contain the spread before you will get to see more of a bilateral arrangements to open up their borders. So I think this will still take some time, but for sure we are seeing this gradual improvement that we are seeing right now in China, and their domestic demands will help in terms of the recovery in the region.
Okay, good. Thanks, Irvin. Teck, over to you. There are questions coming in on startup enterprises. The startup enterprises today are having a lot of cash crunch because they, number one, cannot get investor support. And number two, they couldn't get the banks to lend them money. What would your advice be to the startup investors? And what are the available ESG grants that can help all these startup enterprises in Singapore?
Thanks, Woon. That's a very good question. In fact, we have been working very closely with the startup community, and there are many, many good startups that, as you mentioned, face the cash crunch at this moment. So we are, this is akan datang. We are coming forward with some support scheme for the startup in terms of supporting the startups that are really good and they are suffering now because of the cash crunch during the COVID-19 crisis. So it can be in the form of injecting further equity into the company through our co-investment partners, or in the case of some companies, some kind of relief scheme to help them. So we are working together, our sister agencies, to put a package together. So this will be announced very soon.
Okay, good.
But meanwhile, companies who have been invested by us, we are watching them very closely and helping them, those who require additional cash in this time, to access the various the enterprise development grants or other form of cash support to help them go through this crisis. So there'll be some announcements soon. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, good, very good. There are also many questions coming in on the property rebates, how to make sure that the landlords follow, and if the landlords don't follow, who can they turn to? What is the, which is the government agencies that they can call in relation to the property tax rebates?
There is a legislation I mentioned earlier, was announced on 2nd April that will introduce a legislation to make sure that the landlords pass on the tax rebate in full. Landlords should not be asking tenants with unreasonable requests before they pass on 100% of the tax rebate. I believe this will be with, it's actually crafted by Min Law. I think we can probably through IRAS, you can check in with IRAS on this. Yeah. If you do not receive the rebate, 100% rebate from the landlord.
Okay.
Check the IRAS website. Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. Yeah. Now, for those of you who have more questions about the property tax rebate, please go and look at the IRAS website, right? There are many information there. I just checked. And if you do have some more, you can approach your TACs who can work with the relevant government agencies to answer your questions, right? Now, Irvin, because you are from DBS, and I know you don't lend money in DBS, right? There are many questions coming that points to two things. The bank is still very conservative. They are not like like what the government want them to do, dish out cash fast enough, okay? And they are still asking a lot of questions, and it's not so easy to tap on the temporary bridging loan, okay? And the working capital facilities. They are also asking that the existing loans, some banks are still telling them you need to pay, because that moratorium announced by MAS apply only to secured loans, all right? So can you respond from your bank's perspective? What are you all doing to help this group of people who have unsecured loans and are not able to pay? Or two, right? What are you all doing to help expedite the approval process of these loans to the SME community?
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm not sure whether I can, I'm in the position to speak on behalf of all the banks. But for sure that, I think what we need to recognize is a few things. The bank went through, let's go back to the global financial crisis period. Because of some, pretty, unfortunate incidents and very, awful kind of experience that we went through during the global financial crisis. What we have seen over the past 10 years is that there has been a continued tightenings in terms of, the regulatory framework and also compliance, type of restrictions. Banks has been tightening a lot, even within, the banks itself. A lot of our work has been, have changed significantly. So I think that to some extent has contributed to some of the, the inability to respond more quickly, because there is still very stringent credit worthiness checks, so on and so forth, which was basically a legacy issue. Now we are facing a crisis, and I think the MAS there's already been announced. The MAS is already coming forward and basically leading all the banks and say that, look, if you need more fundings, just come to me direct, because the companies really need the cash on hand. Banks themselves are putting up some of the measures even before the government's recent announcement in the resilience package. So things like, for example, property moratorium, all this has been put in place even before the government announcement. So I think the banks are, looking at what they can do more. I may not be, seriously, I'm not in a position to say, what more can they do? What are the specific measures they will come out with? And I'm very sure that, certainly they are in close contact with MAS to see what more they can do on that.
Okay, now I can come in and give my own personal view on banks for all the audience here. There are some questions. When do I go and talk to my bank? Do I wait until my cash flow is very bad, then I talk to my bank? The answer is, please don't do that. You better do your break-even cash flow analysis. You know how long you're going to last, and you better go and talk to your banks now to offer you a line, right? Using the government financing scheme, okay? But all of us need to recognize that everywhere in the world, the banks have limited resources. It is not going to be able to cater to every needs of every single enterprises, all right? Therefore, you have to go prepared with a viable plan. How do you intend to to survive this COVID, okay? And why must you help me survive this COVID? For the prepared ones, we know that if you are prepared and you go in with your game plan, with your action plan, how are you going to survive this COVID? What you are doing now, all right? The local banks, so far I see, are there to help you, okay? Now, the second thing you need to understand is within a period of 15 days, there are so many new announcements coming out. Within the banks, they are very busy digesting this, adjusting their processes, change the way they do it to go into program lending and use machine to make the approval faster. So my advice to all of you is, while you talk to your relationship managers, please give them some time to deal with this, right? I think in the next 2 weeks, the banks will come out openly with webinar like this to tell you how they are doing, what they are doing to help you accelerate these new cash facilities to you, okay? But from now to maybe in the next 2 weeks, when you hear more of the banks organizing this webinar, you can do a few things, right? Prepare your plan. What are you doing? What kind of help you need from the banks? You cannot go to the bank and say, I don't know, I just want to draw down everything you can lend it to me because the government say you must help me, right? Because if you talk like that, it's not the government, no bank can help you. But if you go in with a plan and say, I need X dollar, okay, this is the reason why I need X dollar. This is what I'm doing now, using like 5R to preserve my business, to save jobs. Please help me. If you talk this way, the banks will be there to help you. So you got to help yourself first, okay?
Yeah, Wintek, can I add on a little bit more?
Yeah.
Like for example, I think you mentioned about, reaching out to the bank. I think this is very important. Rest assured, all my colleagues are, out there with you guys, and then do talk to them, do talk to your relevant RMs, with regards to what you need. But we need to know clearly, even when you apply for the loan, what is the purpose of the loan? How will the fund be used? All these are still, required. I mean, the banks can't possibly be just basically throwing out money, for no reasons, right? Because at the end of the day, we still have a cost of fund that the banks have to pay. And for example, this is an issue that I have brought up with MAS as well. For example, during the global financial crisis, the SIBOR was much lower. All right, it was down all the way down to 0.4%, right? But today the SIBOR is still quite sticky, it's still quite high. So I hope that with MAS stepping in and providing more funding and liquidity into the banking systems, the SIBOR can come down lower, and this will basically provide more confidence and relief for the banks to be able to lend out more aggressively. Also, some of the measures that DBS, for example, we are doing also beyond just basically lending out money, we are also waiving a lot of transaction fees.
Yeah.
Okay, this will help in some way as well, fast transactions, trade facilities, so on and so forth. My colleagues, I think they will be giving up a seminar, I think maybe tomorrow or so with SCCCI as well, and share with us share with the SCCCI's members the kind of other measures that we can or other products that we can offer to help them during this difficult period.
Okay, good. Now, Teck, there are questions relating to the job support scheme. So what some of these people are saying is, assuming we have staff that consume all their leave, okay, and they have to go on no pay leave in April, not because I have a mandatory policy to put everybody on no pay leave, right? So out of that 10, 1 or 2 of the staff are on no pay leave. So will this, the 2 questions, will this affect, okay, my claim under the job support scheme for all the 10 staff, or I will still be entitled to get the full claim for the 8 staff? And what will happen to that 2 unpaid leave staff?
Okay, thanks for the question. In fact, this is something which is already on the MOM website. So I encourage companies with these questions to go there. There's advisory on salary and leave arrangements during the circuit breaker. Primarily to encourage people to stay and keep their employees to get the maximum support from job support scheme. So if they check the website, they can actually see the computation, how the job support scheme supports the employee's salary for the company. If the employee leave, then there's a reduction in terms of the job support scheme. It was also in Alan's presentation earlier, but the detail is actually in the MOM website. But I have to say that the job support scheme encourage people to encourage employers to keep their staff as much as possible. I know some have already implemented unpaid leave scheme, but do look at the website in MOM to see how best to make sure that those who already run out of unpaid leave and so forth make sure you also retain the workers, send them for training, during this period. At the same time, also have the support from the GSS, Job Support Scheme, to do that.
Okay, thank you.
It's quite a comprehensive advisory, yeah.
Yeah. Irvin, over to you again. There are questions. Let's say if I have money now, where should I allocate my assessed fund? So this question said, is it, should I, maybe I could answer live. Okay. Should I allocate at least 20% of my portfolio in Singapore, 40% in US, and 40% in China through Hong Kong Stock Exchange?
Well, okay. I really, you know, I mean, it's good to see, you know, that kind of optimisms, you know, it still exists in the financial markets. But of course, we are in recent times, we are seeing, you know, stabilizations and some emerging signs of recovery, even in the financial markets, was really very badly hammered down, you know, just a few weeks ago. You know, just look at, for example, you know, our bank's DBS share price compared to the start of the year, you know, that essentially tells you what the market is going through right now. But we are seeing stabilizations, and I think it's good, you know, that investors, you know, adopt this kind of mindset, you know, to look for opportunities, you know, now that things has sort of, you know, stabilized. But of course, it's still early days. There are still risks out there. A lot really depends on, you know, the regional countries and countries around the world, whether they are able to contain this outbreak or not. But of course, market is always ahead of the curve. Market always price in ahead of the curve. So it is good to adopt this kind of a more proactive kind of investment strategy. I think what they said, what the question mentioned about 40 in the US, 40 in China, and 20 in Singapore, I think that we can consider that as a pretty balanced approach. But I do much also depends on what industries, what companies you are going to invest in. Now, for China per se, what I can foresee, and I can tell you for sure, that China is going to invest heavily, okay, in medical healthcare, in some you know, infrastructures related, and also in terms of the technology, because you know, we're seeing, look, we could be having a seminar somewhere out in a hotel ballroom, but now we are doing webinar. So there is certainly a strong demand for technology going forward, and also particularly I feel that China need to invest a lot more on healthcare systems. Likewise, we can expect similar investments, you know, by countries around the region as well, particularly those countries with very high population and very densely built up cities.
Now, there are questions relating to existing loan facilities. I will try and answer them. And Irvin or Ted, you can come in and add. Now, and these are relating to your existing unsecured facilities. Whether you are entitled to moratorium, you need to contact your relationship managers and talk to your banks to work out the terms of payment for your unsecured lending. And I have to tell you, all banks in Singapore are very sympathetic. They will listen and they will look at how to help. And as I said earlier, you need to be prepared to explain to them why you do that. We have seen cases where the companies write in to reduce their P plus I. And from what I know, most of these cases, for people who are well prepared, the banks have granted them, all right, the reduction in P plus I, okay? But please do your homework right early, okay? Now, there are many questions relating to manpower, like unpaid leave, all right, and retrenchment benefits and all this. Over here, all these questions, you can actually go to tomorrow's SCCCI webinar, where the Ministry of Manpower representative will be with us, and I was still moderating this tomorrow session. The webinar on manpower questions starts at 11 a.m. Okay, you have not registered, please go ahead to register, and I'll leave these manpower questions to tomorrow, where we can engage MOM rep Okay. Now, Alan, are you there, Alan?
Yes, I'm here.
Alan, can you also update the members here? What kind of help that SCCI, SME care centers are now providing? Because clearly there are people who are looking at how to go for training programs. I know you have explained in your slides just now.
Yes.
How to build new capabilities like you know, go into automation. Where do I get the grants? Where do I get help? So will you be able to explain what SCCI SME Care Center is currently doing and how to help our local enterprises get those targeted grants to help them automate, help them digitalize, help them train their people?
Right, thank you. We, as business advisors, our daily role is basically to reach out to the local enterprises and businesses to understand their pain points primarily. So it's only we understand their business challenges, then we can, you know, make recommendations as in, like, you know, either to automate or to build their human capital, or is it to go for training, or maybe even to remodel their business so that they can prepare themselves for overseas expansion in the near future. So it's all on the case by case and one-on-one, you know, basis, you see. So those schemes I mentioned earlier on in my slides, like for example, the very basic productivity solutions grant, there are over 80 different solutions that enterprises can consider. But most of the time, the business owners themselves, they don't even know what they need. Like for example, payroll, how can I automate it? Or maybe CRM, how can I reach out to my customers? How do I engage them better? Even simple things like even inventory, how do I use it? Barcode solutions to better manage them, you see. So during this slowdown, I thought this is a good opportunity for them to review all their processes. So this is what we can, how we can help them. And it's all FOC, free of charge.
Okay.
Yes, with that.
Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah. Now, there's another question coming in is on the enterprise loan financing scheme. And the question is, can we loan from bank with the new policy and pay off the old loan full amount? My point here, and I that you can add, my point here is don't abuse all these facilities. These facilities are meant to give you new cash, right? To tide over COVID. If you have no need to use it, please don't use it, so that the bank can reserve their bullets to help those who really need the cash. If you are taking the facilities to go and retire your old loans, you're not helping yourself, you're not helping this government, you're not helping all your fellow Singaporeans. So please don't do that, all right? Yeah, Ted, you want to add?
Yeah, one thing I think you are 100% right. So it's actually to help them to build capabilities or to sustain, but not to retire the old loans. But then there are a few questions on alternative financing beyond the bank loans. So maybe I just make a comment here that there are also alternative financing options to overcome their immediate cash flow challenges. So for example, the SBF, Young Business Leaders Network, or YBLN, have set up this Hope Fund, which is a $5 million Hope Fund set up by 6 local firms to help SMEs to weather the COVID-19 cash issues. So this is set up by 6 companies, GoBell Group, the Super Group, the Founders Investment Arm of the Super Group Founders Investment Arm, or Apricot Capital, the Holy Group, Paradise, Singlong, and Soybuild Group. So they've actually put together a $5 million Hope Fund, and this can give a fixed loan of $50,000 for each firm. So those who are in need of a quick loan, quick approval, can also look at things like the Hope Fund. Besides that, we also in Enterprise Singapore put together the Singapore Together Enterprise or Enhancing Enterprise Resilience package called STEER, S-T-E-R, SG Together Enhancing Enterprise Resilience Package. This is to support funds that are set up by trade associations and chambers or industry groupings to help businesses tide over the challenges arising from the COVID-19. So we have actually provided a matching grant to the fund. For example, the Singapore Furniture Industry Council, SFIC, have set up a fund that can be used by members for their business development. So I think these are two examples of financing facilities besides the bank loans. Because I saw some of the questions in the Q&A asking, are there alternatives to the bank loans? So just for information.
Yeah, thanks, Teck, for covering this. And another question that is coming out is, if the government is supporting 90%, why still need the borrowers to sign personal guarantee? Teck, what is your take?
Okay, I think this is a question that's commonly asked. I think although the government come up with the 90% guarantee, I think owners or borrowers should still take responsibility for the loan. And that's the reason why I think banks also require a personal guarantee from the borrowers to ensure that there is responsibility, onus on them to make sure that loans is being paid, even though government come out with the loan guarantee. Yeah.
Can I add on this? I think the government this time around, in terms of fiscal resources, the sheer amount of money that has been pumped in to support everyone, the companies, the workers, the household, self-employed. I think this is something that, like I mentioned just now, as an economist, I've never seen this kind of thing being done before. This is unprecedented. But we have to bear in mind, where does the government's money come from? It's actually coming from taxpayers as well. And henceforth, the government has to ensure that, the money are used wisely, there are proper accountability, that the borrowers are also, being responsible in how they utilize the funding. And also, I want to use this opportunity to highlight that, look, when it comes to support and help, it is not just, the credit, segments that we should be looking at. I think the policy is very clear that the support comes in terms of 3 segments: cash flow, costs, and credits. So I will urge, the business owners, do not just focus on the credit portions. This is not the only support that can help you. There are other support measures. Do utilize them as well. And also when it comes to credit, I fully agree with, what Ted has highlighted. There is a need for certain, responsibility, when banks lend out the money, even though the government is covering 90% of the risk. But if in the event of the default, the money is actually coming from taxpayer.
Thank you.
Okay, now I have to put this Q&A to a close. I've allowed this to extend for 18 minutes now to make sure that all the critical questions are answered. Thank you very much, Irvin, Ted, and Alan, for coming together in such critical time to give hope and to get people to stay positive. Thank you.